The Batman Arkham Collection, or the Batman Arkham Trilogy, depending what platform you're playing it on. By either name, this contains Batman Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight. And these are games that I'm not going to try and hide my affection for, being games very well suited for the Batman franchise, and of course featuring Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. These games do so very much right, in my opinion. So, let's talk about these. And it seems only right to do these games in the order of release. Starting, of course, with Arkham Asylum, originally released all the way back in 2009. Now, when I heard this game was coming out, I had very low expectations. As when I was a child, almost any game based on a license of some kind was just terrible. Now, admittedly, we're talking about games in the 80s and 90s, and that was a long time ago, even back in '09. But I still had that mindset. Then I heard Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill and Arlene Sorkin were all going to be in this. And I had the thought that that's pretty cool, but I bet the game is still going to be terrible. So the game released, and I by and large ignored it. That is, until I was at a friend's place, and he threw it in the Xbox because he wanted me to see this. And it turns out, I really should have paid more attention to this game pre-release. I didn't personally have an Xbox or a PS3 at that point, so I ended up playing it on PC. With keyboard and mouse. And while that was workable, that definitely is not the ideal way to play Arkham Asylum. Still, I did greatly enjoy the game. All the references to various pieces of Batman media, in particular a lot of tributes to Batman the Animated Series, and more importantly, the gameplay was just spot on. The two-button combat when you're dealing with hordes of goons. And of course, you're able to integrate the various Bat gadgets into the combat. It didn't hurt that the game was essentially a 3D Metroidvania. My only real complaint with the game at the time, and still to this day, is that final boss fight. The Titan-infused Joker turned Hulk. It just seemed kind of out of place and unnecessary. It would have made more sense to deal with the Joker first, and then have the actual final boss be the Titan-infused Poison Ivy that you deal with in-game before the Joker. But I get it. They wanted a somewhat unique set piece to end the game on. But regardless of all that, I did truly enjoy the game, and it made me very excited when I heard a sequel was coming. Which was, of course, Arkham City, which unfortunately, when it first came out, I wasn't able to play, as at the time I had my dead computer, and I lacked an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, so I had to wait till I got my hands on a new computer, and when I did, this game was certainly worth the wait, having a much larger and much more open world to play in. Being able to glide across the whole of Arkham City. I was a little disappointed that Tara Strong took over for Arlene Sorkin, as while I do generally like her work, in this game I think she sounded more like Toot Bronstein from Drawn Together than Harley Quinn. In general, I was low-key disappointed that more voice actors from the animated series did not show up in this series of games. But I do understand why they didn't, as many of these characters are radically different in their incarnations here. But what I did like in this game was the addition of all the side stories, because it shows there's more going on here than just Hugo Strange and Arkham City. Other members of the Rogues Gallery are all doing things here, but most of these side stories are wholly optional if you're not interested. Although if you're not interested, it does make me wonder why you would be playing a Batman game to begin with. This game also really expanded the background of the Arkhamverse. Like how underground, there's the remnants of Wonder City. Somehow, none of this has been demolished. And Arkham City in general existing, because apparently Gotham City's situation is such that the citizens thought that fencing off a portion of the city just for the criminals was a good and practical idea. I do like the idea that the Titan formula has given Joker something of a death sentence. And of course, Joker decides to give Batman the same problem, so he'll either get cured or take Batman with him. Spoilers if you haven't actually played this, but Batman lives and is kind of cured, and the Joker ends up dead. But that cured should be in air quotes, because it becomes a major plot point in the final part of this trilogy, Arkham Knight, which you may have heard the PC version of Arkham Knight was unplayable at release. So this one I first experienced on a PlayStation 4, which I actually won at a mall kiosk, but that's a story for another day. But this was the next-gen Arkham game, and it looked very impressive at the time, and I still think looks pretty good today. And by and large, this really was just a bigger version of Arkham City. And this time around, you're in what I assume is the whole of Gotham City. And the city is large enough that you don't actually get access to all of it at the beginning. You unlock the entire map over the course of the game. Terrorist threats have led to the city being evacuated, so virtually everyone left in Gotham City is a criminal, which is very convenient, so when you run over someone in the Batmobile, you don't have to feel guilty about it. At the time, a lot of people were very excited for the Batmobile to be in this game, but honestly, I do think the Batmobile may be the worst aspect of this game. And that's because it's wedged into areas of the game where it simply doesn't belong. Like a series of Riddler racetracks you have to do in the Batmobile. Or the extremely tedious tank fighting you have to do, because the Batmobile has a tank mode, which seems like a strange thing for Batman to have since he's supposed to have a dedication to being a non-lethal superhero. Of course, the real mystery here is who is the Arkham Knight, which becomes very obvious early on when they start revealing details about the death of Jason Todd. Because quite honestly, why would you bring him up at all unless he's going to be the twist villain? But putting those things aside, what was great is that you have the Joker with you constantly. Not the actual Joker, this one's just a hallucination on the part of Batman. A hallucination that's supposed to represent the Joker slowly taking over Batman's mind, as apparently his blood in the last game didn't just give Batman a disease, it also infected him with Joker, which is just one of those things you just have to accept, like Liquid Snake still being alive in an arm. It's also strange that many of the characters here are portrayed differently than they were earlier in the series. Scarecrow is basically unrecognizable here. Commissioner Gordon is very different, but there was only a very small amount of him in the first game, so that's a little more forgivable. The new Batsuit is an interesting idea, and looks great, but all it really amounts to is you being able to take out a few goons right at the beginning of a combat encounter, which the game balances by just making there be more goons. I don't mean to sound like this is a terrible game or anything. I know most of my thoughts on this game have just been complaints, but overall it does a good job of wrapping up the story of the Arkhamverse. Or at least it did till the MetaQuest game got announced. Overall, I think the Arkham games make for a very satisfying experience. Any one of these games could be played individually and have a great experience that way. Or you could play all three, in order, and have an even better experience. And I know a lot of people don't like this phrase, but these are games that really make you feel like Batman. It's just sort of a shame that this collection did leave one Arkham game out, that being Arkham Origins, which is slowly becoming the forgotten Arkham game. Maybe in a couple more generations, when they do yet another Arkham Collection, they'll include Arkham Origins. Or maybe not, and it'll become a trapped game. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.